children will always be afraid of the dark, and men with minds sensitive to hereditary impulse will always tremble at the thought of the hidden and fathomless. Worlds of strange life which may pulsate in the gulfs beyond the stars, or press hideously upon our own globe in unholy dimensions which only the dead and the moonstruck can glimpse. Cthulhu Wars is a 2 to 6 player game by Sandy Peterson Games. In the game you will get a rulebook, 4 player hint cards, 2 map boards of Earth, 8 faction-specific markers, 3 Ritual of Annihilation tracks, a Doom track, 20 6-sided dice, 4 rectangular faction cards, 1 triangle Ritual of Annihilation marker, 1 circular first player token, 24 rectangular spellbooks, 12 circular desecration markers, 24 octagonal gates, 36 hexagonal elder sign chits, as well as 18 chits that read 1, 12 chits that read 2, and 6 chits that read 3. There are 64 plastic figures for the 4 different factions, 24 occults, 6 of each in the 4 faction colors, green, blue, red, and yellow, as well as other different figures. Hey guys, and welcome back to another Unfiltered Gamer Kickstarter board game review. Today's game on the tabletop is made by Sandy Peterson and it is called Cthulhu Wars. Cthulhu Wars is for 2 to 4 players with many expansions that can expand the game to 5 and I think even 6, 7 and more with huge boards. Right now we'll be discussing the base game, all the components and how it plays, and also giving a review and then talking a little bit about the expansion that has just recently come out. So first thing I want to mention is that there is 4 different factions that come in the base game as well as a bunch of the stuff which I'm sure you've already seen via this beginning of this intro of this video. And we're going to be discussing how the game works, what it looks like, and what it's going to feel like as one of the many cults of Cthulhu. Okay, so for Cthulhu Wars, every single player is going to get a faction. If we're playing a 3-player game for this example, this is going to be a faction board. Everybody's going to get this faction board as well as their spell books that they'll be using to be placed onto the board during periods of the game. Also, you're going to be getting a marker to indicate your power track and a marker for the Doom track which tallies points at the end of the game. After that, we'll set this aside. Every single player is then going to receive a gate on their starting locations, as well as all of their cultists. So for red, they would start here, for blue, they would start here, and for yellow, they would start over here. Now also realize that one of your cultists is always going to be remaining on these spell gates to gain bonus points. After that is done, make sure every single player has their colors in front of them. If you're playing with green, Cthulhu will go first, and if you are not, the largest or youngest player will go first. Also note, there is going to be a ritual track for each and every different player base, and for a 3-player game, you're going to start with this symbol on the 5. Finally, yellow player will receive a special desecration tokens, which will be used throughout the game with one of their main old ones, the Yellow King. After that, the game is ready to begin. After everything has been placed, you're going to go through the first wave of the game, or round. There are 4 phases in the first round. There is the Gather Power phase, the Determining the First Player phase, the Doom phase, which is not enacted on the first round, but every round after, and the Action phase. During the Gather Power phase, you're going to gather power or currency for every single cultist you have on the board, different kinds of monsters you might have, as well as whenever you have one of these gates that is not occupied, everybody gets a point. Or if you have a gate occupied by your minion, you're going to get a bonus point. Also to note that you're going to be determining the first player after every round, and that is going to be based on whoever has the most power, or the most points based on the Gathering Power phase. Next is the Doom phase, where you'll be moving, you're going to get +1 Doom or point value for the end of the game for every single gate you control, as well as you'll have the option for the ritual track. If you would choose to spend power to move that track up, at a certain point the game will end. But every other turn before that, you're going to also gain bonus points for old gods you're going to have on the field, as well as all of the gates you control. Finally is the action phase. During the action phase, the first player will take an action, the second player will take an action, and so on and so forth. Every single action is going to cost a certain amount of power. Once you have no more power, you are done, or if you choose to pass, you are done. After everybody has either passed or lost all their action and or power, then the round will start over, beginning with the Gather Power sequence. Alright, so here we have everything set up, and now we're going to start with the first player, which is either the largest or the youngest, which would be me, and I'm going to be red. Now on the turn sequence, the first thing you do is gather power for every single turn. Gathering power is fairly simple. You get a point for a cultist, 2 points per controlled gate,
1 point per powered, one power per abandoned gate, and everybody would get that, and plus 1 power per sacrificed cultist. Increased to half of the highest factions if you have lower than half of the highest factions. So in this example here, at the beginning of the game, it's simple. You get 2 for the gate, and then you get 6 total for all the different cultists. Oop, here we're missing a cultist. There we go. Then we're going to go ahead and move this tracker to 8. That would be the entire gather power phase. Everyone would do that, and then we would move on to the next phase, which is determining the first player. And now in the first round, like I said, everybody's going to have the same amount, so it's going to be based on whether green or whoever the youngest or whoever the largest player is. So we move on past that. The Doom phase is skipped for the first round. So we'll move on to the action phase. Action phase is fairly simple. You can spend power to do any of the actions below here, or to summon anything over here. Every board is going to have a unique ability, so every single type of faction is going to have an ability. This one lets you summon multiple monsters from multiple gates, and every single faction is going to have a spellbook. Whenever you perform one of these specific tasks or missions, you will gain a spellbook which gives you an additional bonus, unique victory condition or power or whatever, throughout the game. So for instance over here it says if you have units in 8 areas, you would just instantly acquire one of these spellbooks, which does something unique. So we'll just go through a small turn. Now, as you know, you can move, of course. You could power units to move. You could build another one of these gates here. You could declare a battle. You could capture occultists, or you could recruit an occult cultist for 1. Also, if you spend any of the currency here, it's going to be based on the cost here, which indicates what type of monsters you can summon. Let's go over a basic turn. So first of all, I'm going to spend 2 points, which allows me to move in any of these areas 1 space. So if I'm over here, basically each cultist can move 1 space. Now you can move as many units as you want from one area to the next, and all of these borders represent a specific area. So I couldn't move 1 here and 1 here, but I can move as many as I want, 1 power per, to go over here. So I'm going to spend 1 power for this one and 1 power for this one, making it down to 2. That would be my 1 action for the turn. After that, the next player would get to go and do their 1 action for a turn. So maybe he would move over here, and maybe he would move over here. Now on my next action, which we're going to stay on the action phase until we've all passed or reached 0 power, I will then make a gate, which will cost me 3. So 3 points, I can put a gate here and put a cultist on top. Putting cultists on top of gates is going to give me more power during the gather power phase. That would be my 1 action for a turn, and they would all do something similar. Maybe they would also select gates, just like that. And finally, I've got 3 power left. So what do I want to do? Well, if you look over here on the board, it says as an action, I can eliminate 2 of my cultists, and if I do so, I gather a spellbook. So I'm going to look through here, and there's a bunch of different things you can do, but I'll just pick a simple one. This one says all of my cultists get a singular extra combat value, so they're all valued at 1 instead of 0, and generally all cultists are valued at 0 combat. So there we go, now I've gathered that. My turn would end, these guys would do something else, maybe they wanted to move, whatever they wanted to do, right? Then it goes back to my turn again. Let's say I want to summon a monster. So I can summon a ghoul. Now ghoul costs 1, so I move 1 down. I can place a ghoul on any of the locations in which I have a cultist on one of these spaces here. One of these little power areas, the gate power gates. So I'll just place one right here. Now if you're summoning a cultist can be placed on any area on the map in which you're going to have a unit. So it doesn't matter if they're on a gate or not. And if you have no units on the board, a cultist can be summoned anywhere. After I've done that, everybody else gets another turn to do something, and I can follow up by doing one final thing. Maybe I want to spend an action point and gather another one of my cultists back, and my last action I can spend another one to gather another cultist back. It'd probably be a useful thing to do. Everybody would reach 0 or pass, and then we would go back to the gather power phase and start all over again. Now there's one thing I did not mention, so we'll go ahead and talk about the next couple phases here, is yes, I'm going to gather 2 more power, so I'd go from 8 to 10. And so would everybody else do their stuff as well. We would determine first player based on whoever has the most power. And then the Doom phase, which is very interesting. You're going to get 1 Doom point per controlled gate, and each player may then perform 1 Ritual of Annihilation, earning 1 Doom per controlled gate, as well as an Elder Sign per old one that they have. Now, the Elder Signs are over here, and they're these wonderful little things, which are random from 1 to 3. And you're just going to pull one out of the bag, and they'll be counted as bonus victory points for the end of the game. Once you go through that track, this little Doom track here, every person has an opportunity to move it. So it would start at 5 here, and the first player would have the opportunity to say, yes, I'd like to spend 5 of my power before the action phase starts. Then you would get your bonuses. Then the next player would get to select the next player. And as the game continued, if you ever reached this area, that would end the game. If not, it would end the game at 30 points. So now you guys have a basic idea of how to play the turns and how to summon monsters and move. The last thing I didn't talk about that's really important in this game is fighting. And fighting is actually very, very simple. First of all, you get a bunch of dice. There are a bunch of these black dice that you're going to be rolling. And the main thing about them is that 1, 2, and 3 don't do anything when you roll them, and 4 and 5 make monsters run, and 6 destroy monsters. And it doesn't matter what monster it is. If you're having Cthulhu fight a cultist that has 1 attack and that cultist rolls a 6, it can defeat Cthulhu all on his own. Very unlikely, especially because Cthulhu can actually kill monsters even before the battle begins, but possible, right? And 4 and 5s are going to make monsters run, so if you're on a certain space with people and you each roll 5 die, then you're going to, let's say you get 3 4s. All 3 of those 4s are going to make 3 of your opponent's monsters run away. Whereas if you had 3 6s, it would kill 3 monsters. All the 1s, 2s, and 3s do nothing. And after you do that combat roll, that would be the end of a combat action, and you would pass turn. Now you can attack periodically for one power every single turn, provided that you have monsters on the same space as an opponent's. And it also does benefit you to remove those cultists off those power areas, because they will lose power throughout the game as you destroy them. That's the basic idea of how to do some combat. I'll show you a simple example battle right now. Okay, so we progressed throughout the game a little bit. On the last turn, I had these 3 units move from over here in Africa over to here in Asia. And then blue chose to summon one of these guys, which is a hunting horror. After that, it came back to my turn after yellow did some desecration, and the red team is going to fight. So all you need to do is spend 1 power. So you just move this track down by 1, and then you're going to begin battle. So it works pretty simply. You look at the combat values on your characters, and this one does 2, and each of my cultists, thanks to my spellbook, do +1 extra. And then the hunting horror over here does 2, and all of these cultists do nothing because these guys aren't very useful, whereas they are for red. You then have the dice rolled. Ooh, nice. So the blue pole scored a 6 and a 5, and red scored 2 4s. These 1 and 3 are useless. And it says the 2 4s make 2 of these units move to an adjacent area that does not have any other red units. So I can choose to move them over here to yellow, over here to blue, or even over here to yellow and blue. So we'll move them over here to yellow to visit yellow. After that, we're going to do blue's fighting actions, which is 6 and a 5. So the 5 makes a unit run. So maybe he'll choose this one. And one of the red units dies over here, so he's gone now. Whenever you kill cultists, if they don't come back on the field, you're going to lose power, so that's very interesting. As well as this unit would stay here. Now, on blue's turn, he could choose to fight, and it would simply be a 2-on-1, and they could roll that off if they wanted, and it would show here's a 5 and a 4, and it would just make this red unit run away as well. And that is the basic idea of combat. Of course, different characters have different combat die, as well as some of the characters do not fight, but actually come into combination with other units to do certain things, like this guy here, for instance, the king in yellow. He actually summons zombies, and zombies are actually 1 attack less than the total amount of zombies on that area. So if there's 5, the attack would be 4. But he gains points for putting desecration markers on the board. So that is the idea of how combat works in Cthulhu Wars. Okay, so now we're going to reverse time a little bit and say that this cultist was actually still there during the combat session. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about capturing cultists. First of all, there are 3 tiers of monsters. You got the great old ones, you got the monsters, and cultists. And cultists are the lowest end, where the great old ones are the highest end. So if blue wanted to on his turn, instead of fighting, he could simply choose to capture a monster. It would cost him 1 point, and it would remove this monster from the board. Now, he can only do that provided that the other player does not have any monsters of the same rank of his on the field, so on the same area as his. So for instance, if you had this dark young here, they would both be monsters, so he would no longer be able to capture the cultists. But if the blue had a great old one right here, Neoanthotep, he could actually then capture the cultist because he has the greatest tier of monster in the area. The same would go for if we had Shub-Niggurath over here, then both of them would have great old ones. No capturing would be available. Alright, so those are the basics of how to play Cthulhu Wars. There's a couple little things that I didn't mention, but they're very simple in the rules, and I'm sure you can figure them out. The last couple things I want to mention is obviously the spell book is required to be filled in order to win the game. You have to have done all of the different objectives to enact the ending, in order to actually have a chance to qualify for the end of the game, right? And the game ends when somebody either reaches 30 points on the Doom tracker, or if the mark over here, this ritual tracker over here, gets to the instant death area. and that would trigger the end of the game. You would tally up all the total points in the Doom Tracker, as well as all of these random things, all these random Elder Signs that you're going to be pulling from the Cthulhu Wars bag. You're going to get these little Elder Signs. And they range from, obviously, 1 to 3. I just pulled a 2. So that would be how the game plays, and what it's like. Alright, let me tell you what I think about it. Alright, so Cthulhu Wars, what do I think? Well, first of all, these miniatures are huge, and this is a little bit of the gimmick of the game, but it works really, really well. I love the fact that these miniatures are big and fun to play with, fun to put them on the board and feel like you actually have this power for all of these monsters. The thematic experience works well, because you do feel like the great old gods are coming back to destroy all of humanity. And you feel like you're one of these different sects, right? And, you got like the red goat, and then you've got like the great Cthulhu, and so on and so forth, right? And they're all very, very different. Every single one of these factions is very different. And there's a lot of expansion to this game, a lot of different expansions. I'll be talking about a little bit about the newest one that has come out recently after this. But just alone in this base game, there is tons of replayability. The boards themselves are double-sided, so that you can play a 3, 4, 5-player game, even a 2-player game. And it just works really well. It's very simple, and it's kind of like people think like an area control risk game, but the amount of luck in this game is slim to nil. There is so much strategy in how you move. You could have the best luck in the game, but if you don't make the right placements, you're going to lose. So anybody who likes semi-complex, not too complex obviously, you just saw the rules of the game, that's pretty much how you play the game. But semi-complex, area control, a little bit of dice rolling, a bit of strategy. You're going to really, really like Cthulhu Wars. I know the price point is high, but it is worth it. If you like this kind of game, if you love big, detailed miniatures, you are getting what you pay for. I've gotten a lot of games that have some miniatures and stuff like that, and you're spending $50, $60 on it, and you get a couple things, and you're just like, what? This game comes with everything. All of the tokens, all of the chits, they're huge and thick, and they work really well. The cards make the turns seem so simple. We went through the rulebook really quickly, and it came with a bunch of extra stuff too. We even have this little simple thing that turns to show you which way the turns are going, as well as the first player markers. This huge bag, a lot of it's just unnecessarily awesome. So that is basically what I have to say about the game. Everything works phenomenally well. I have pretty much no qualms with it, other than, I suppose people that don't want a big, thick, expensive game probably aren't going to want this game. But for me, it is a knock out of the park. I also, for reference, love the game The Others, and it had that very thematic feel with that game as well as this game right here. I mean, I had to compare miniatures. I was so excited about them. I'm like, ooh, wow, little more detailed on The Others, obviously, than this guy, but this guy's bigger and enlarged and in charge kind of thing. So definitely a nice, well purchased game. Should definitely check it out and check out the new Kickstarter that's currently up right now that has tons of new stuff, which I'll be talking about right now. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about the expansion that has come out just now. The Cthulhu Wars Onslaught 3, which has a ton of new stuff in it. The first thing it has is the faction The Ancients, which is another faction all on itself, which includes all of the miniatures and everything you need to play as The Ancients. It also is including a Shagai map, which is like a space map, and it looks gorgeous. Another thing I want to talk about is the Masks of Nerolanthrope, which is a neutral unit faction you'll be playing with throughout the game, as well as a bunch of individual units like the Bloated Woman, the Shadow Pharaoh, and the Dark Demon. All interesting units that have their own rules. Another thing I'll talk about is the Beyond Time and Space faction, which is another whole new faction, as well as a new Cthulhu sculpt, which is going to be the Dire Cthulhu, which I'll have over here. A brilliant, beautiful model in which you can replace the old Cthulhu with, as well as all new Cultist sculpts. So if you have all your basic Cthulhu sculpts, which is just like this one here, if you already have the base game, these new sculpts will be for each and every faction, and they'll be different for every single faction, which is a nice little thing added. As well as 20 battle dice for each of all of the factions. Well, you can pick up all these different add-ons. As well as the game is going to be funded and fully sent to you. Estimated time around July 2018. It's going to come with a lot of this stuff, as well as a lot of the additions you can get, and all of the different packages that go all the way down up to like $600 or $700, in which you can purchase everything this game has to offer. So if you haven't picked this game up yet, and you do want to get it, there's tons of big, brilliant packages they've done at reduced cost from MSRP, which is an excellent time to purchase the game during this Kickstarter, which is going on right now. Hopefully you've seen just a few of the things, and you'll go ahead and check out the Kickstarter to see all the rest of the stuff that they have included in this huge new Onslaught package for Cthulhu Wars. An excellent game that I totally recommend with my big seal of approval. Alright guys, thanks for watching another Unfiltered Gamer Kickstarter board game review for Cthulhu Wars by Sandy Peterson Games, a wonderful game that I cannot stress enough to go ahead and check out this Kickstarter campaign. I really enjoyed it, and so did everybody else who got to play it. We even did a live stream if you're interested by checking out our Facebook group, Unfiltered Gamer. Alright guys, if you like this content, go ahead and check out the rest of our content here on YouTube. Like, subscribe, and comment. It all helps us and we really, really appreciate it. Also, you can go ahead and check out our website, unfilteredgamer.com. We've got tons of blog posts and giveaways and our huge Kickstarter list, so you can find all the best and brand new games out there, and you don't have to search in that nasty Kickstarter search engine. Also, go ahead and check out our affiliate websites, everythingboardgames.com, The Giveaway Geek, and Devatos Gaming. They present a bunch of giveaways and reviews, even more than my own site, so do go ahead and check them out. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and once again, I look forward to seeing you guys next time.
It was gargantuan. A mountainous form rising from the sea, surrounded by lesser monstrosities that oozed and dragged themselves toward us with distorted limbs, tentacles, and pseudopods. Where we heard that the Pacific Islands were empty, we didn't understand. We still thought in human terms. We hadn't considered that the colossal thing that had been eating, scourging the islands of life, and now it was here, hungry again.